Hi, I'm Pragathi. I'm from Bangalore. I have a bachelor's in media studies, economics, and political science, and I decided to work independently as a journalist before UFP. And I covered stories that fell at the intersection of gender, labor, and governance. I was also a regular contributor to the Bengaluru vertical for Citizen Matters. So while I was working as a journalist, I largely covered civic issues that were based in Bangalore for Citizen Matters, but also for other publications. And that's when I heard as well as contacted Neeti and Shri Anand and all of them for stories, and I spoke to them, and that's when I got to know about the program. So I had exhausted all my inputs from my bachelor's education and I was like at a standstill. And I felt the stories that I was covering, I felt like there were like a lot of, I didn't have like a theoretical footing in the stories that I was covering. And I felt like my understanding was in its nascent stages, which is why I liked or which is why UFP piqued my interest because it offered that theoretical foundation in like a variety of subjects at different scales of the urban. So, at a fundamental level, I think I just wanted theoretical inputs, and I wanted to have the kind of training to even begin addressing these issues that I didn't have during my bachelor's, and that I wasn't able to cultivate when I was on the field. So I felt that there was like a little bit of gap that I needed to fill, and which is why I chose the UFP. Yeah, I would say yes because, like I said, when I was working as an independent journalist, I was confined to these certain domains, right? Like labor, gender, and governance. And I felt like the one thing that I did understand in UFP is that urban issues do not exist in silos. There are like a lot of factors that do affect it. And I felt like I didn't have like the kind of training to even start talking about these issues, but UFP did provide me with that because now I have like the lens of planning and infrastructure and the economy to talk about the kind of domains that I already had access to. So these inputs that UFP has given me, I felt like these have enriched and added to what I already knew about these domains, and I felt like that was like a very valuable takeaway. I would say so, yes. Some classes like the identity and social practice, economy, and governance, I felt like they were like a natural progression from my undergrad education and because of the kind of work I had already done. But things like the geospatial lab or infrastructure and planning and all of that, I felt like I was a little bit out of my depth. But I think that those were the skills that I got to hone during my commons term. So I think a year ago, all of these large data sets would have really intimidated me, and I'm glad to say that's not where I am right now. And because I had plans of being a data journalist, I can't really shy away from data in my field. So the urban informatics lab, the data analysis classes that we took, it broke down data to like very digestible bits, and I could use them to evidence the kind of qualitative claims that I was making in my stories. I think I really liked the electives term, the pace at which it went, and I got to deep dive into like a subject matter for like 2 whole weeks. And we weren't just confined to this, right? There were also our project that was happening simultaneously, our skill labs were happening simultaneously. So they worked at conjunction with the kind of stuff that we were learning in electives. And I really liked the pace, and it also made us a little bit used to the kind of vocabulary that was being thrown at us in commons. And I felt like when it did come to electives, we started using them, we started invoking our learnings from commons in the kind of outputs that we put out during the electives. Course structure, I feel like I felt like the foundation term was far more paced out than the commons term was. So in my opinion, I would have really liked if they could swap the kind of timelines that was set for commons and set for foundation, because I felt like at commons it was very condensed, and because we were learning like a variety of things in such a shorter time span, I don't think we could devote enough time to like digesting the kind of learnings as well as putting them out on the field during our practica, which we were able to do during the foundation. So I would have liked like a slightly more relaxed pace for commons. Yeah, I think it was balanced. I think the course structure did give enough amount of time for every chunk that it was teaching us. I think I really like the electives term, especially because during my undergrad education, I didn't get to deep dive into like a specific part of economics that I did get to do during my practice of economics in the urban class during the electives, and I felt like it really took me back to like a very fundamental part of just learning in a class for like over 2 weeks, and then discussing it with my peers and like engaging with them in the kind of assignments that we were putting out. So, Practica for me was like a massive learning curve, and because of the kind of people that I was engaged in, it was like a diverse group. With somebody was like a history major, we had people from with an anthropological background. I was a journalist. We had a couple of architects on in our team, so it was like a massive learning experience for me. So, our site was based in Ati Nagar, and we were looking at street vendors. So, during the course of our practica, we adopted like a legislative and a regulatory framework to assess the kind of precarity that they faced, which led us to like a larger inquiry, which was that there is a lack of urban imagination of street as a place of work. And I felt like there was like inputs of anthropology, inputs of planning that could make this project what it was. When we just came in, right, there were like a lot of verticals that we were getting used to. We were getting used to data, we were getting used to identity, we were looking at resource governance on all of that. And if that would have happened just through like secondary literature, just through the kind of governmental archives that we were studying, I don't think my learning would have been what it was on the field, because when we started off practica pretty early on, right? So the kind of vocabulary that we learned and the kind of framework that the classes did provide us, I think it was very important that we looked at the lived experiences of those teachings, and which is why I felt like the field visits were very important. Yes, especially since the pandemic, because I feel like the pandemic has really altered our practice and it has created a massive literature gap. So at UFP, like while we're studying the economy, we're also studying the kind of impact that COVID has on like the female labor force participation rate, the contemporary labor market as we know it, and the kind of housing practices or alternative housing practices that have come up because of this pandemic, right? I would say this is very important to understand the kind of contemporary relevance that global events have had. So the project that I'm currently working on is an exploration of public transport in Bangalore, and the mode that we've chosen is the BMTC. So at a fundamental level, we want to look at where people live and where people work and how the BMTC plays into this role. So I think one of our broader inquiries would be to see if people are confined to lowly remunerative jobs within their vicinity because they can't access or afford public transportation. So we have granular ward level data through the 2011 census, and we're trying to overlay that on the robust network of BMTC routes that we've mapped out, and we're trying to see where there is room for improvement, where there are routes, where there are underutilized routes, and to see how this facilitates the access or inaccessibility to economic opportunities. So like a year ago, like I said, right, I was like at a standstill. I knew there were things that interested me. I wanted to look at rental practices. I wanted to look at how housing in gated communities happen. I wanted to see if feminist city would can probably be like if it could be anything more than a imagined reality. I had all of these questions, but I didn't have the entry points and I didn't know where to focus on these issues. With UFP, with my teachings in planning and economy, I feel like I can leverage those to at least make some sort of policy propositions or even propose affirmative action in my stories. And I felt like I wasn't there a year ago. Life at IIHS was good. This was my first time living outside, even though I'm not technically living in a different city. I'm still living outside my home. So I feel like I cultivated a really nice network of friends and peers that I can rely on in like personal and professional capacity. And life at IIHS was good. It was fast paced. It was something that I really admired about the program was how comprehensive it was. I didn't feel like anything about it was superficial, because there was some sort of deep dive and some sort of field based engagement that I was really missing during my undergrad education. Yeah, I think master classes were very important in that way, because like we were just learning about how it is to be in the urban. I think master classes gave us like an insight on what our practice would be like, how we'd want to position ourselves in the urban, what kind of, at what scale we would want to work at. And I think master classes were very important in like to helping this break down for us. I think this is an important place to just ask questions and a great knowledge to create knowledge. So I think just be honest on your applications. Know exactly what you want to do, or look at the curriculum and see what kind of subjects excite you. What kind of what you see will have like a longer term engagement. What you'd like to have like a longer term engagement with. And I think if you put all of that in your applications, you're good to go.